who did it? Who done it? And of course, if you've seen the other movies, not only that death is, of course, being looked at here and investigated, but murders happen along the way in the house. So what's going on, everyone? Jim Alexander here with Real Talker. And as you can tell, I have some very suspicious and auspicious, I think is the word, people behind me. Yes. The candles are lit. It's dark. It's a haunting in Venice, and that is what I'm going to be reviewing. So take a brief look and we'll get right to it.
Something in this house tried to kill me.
Don't look at me like I'm suspect. We're old friends.
Every murderer is somebody's old friend. No one shall leave until I find if the living have been killed by the dead. You have been hiding here all this time.
Who are you talking to?
All right, Haunting in Venice. If you've seen this character behind me right there, yeah, that's Kenneth Branagh. And he kind of looks familiar with that stash. You're probably right. Yes, that's Hercule Poirot. I hope I'm saying the last name right, but if I'm not, I'm not. Yes, the character, the detective of all detectives, that puts other ones like Sherlock Holmes to shame. He's been in other movies with this character. And if you've seen Murder on the Orient Express, or if you've seen Death on the Nile, yes, that's the same character. And this is just a different story and a different murder case to solve. So if you enjoyed those movies, this one's right up the alley, and very similar to those in style and story. So you know what you're getting if you've seen the other ones. If you're not, this is not a horror movie. If you believe the titles and maybe the trailers kind of looks like it, very brooding and dark behind me here on the poster. It's got some horror elements, sure, but it is a murder mystery. It's a mystery movie. So that's what you're getting with this film. For those of you who are wondering what the story in this one is, well, it takes place in post-World War II, and in Venice, Italy. Very nice location and sites, although you are trapped in basically in a mansion here, castle-like mansion too, in Venice, so not much of the outside. And Hercule is retired and kind of living in exile. And he is, of course, once again in the middle of a murder, right? One of the guests at one of the guests is murdered, and he's right at the thick and center of it. And time for the detective in himself to find out who it is. And he's kind of led into this by Tina Fey's character. So she kind of comes and visits him, and Oridan Oliver is her name, but we know her as Tina Fey here. And she kind of hooks him in basically with a story. And yes, the basically what happens here is that there is a girl that dies, and they need to find out who did it, who done it. And of course, if you've seen the other movies, not only that death is, of course, being looked at here and investigated, but murders happen along the way in the house. So on Orient Express, it took place on a train. In Death on the Nile, Murder on the Nile, or Death on the Nile, whatever, someone died in the Nile. It was on a boat. This is in a mansion. So we are not on a moving transportation here. We are staying still in a house that's locked in, because Hercule locks them up to try to discover who done it, sort of thing. So yeah, if you follow it, it's of course it's interesting, and you kind of guess along the way who done it. And yeah, that's sort of what we're getting here with this movie. Now, the cast. Usually in these Kenneth Branagh films of this type, you always have a bunch of superstar actors part of this cast here. And this one's no different, because this one has, as I mentioned, Tina Fey, Jamie Dornan, Michelle Yeoh. She's in here and she's been on fire. So um, you have really good actors here. Young kid named Jude Hill. If you've seen Belfast, you kind of remember him from that. A really good actress that I'm glad she was in here and played a big role was Kelly Riley, very underrated. So you do have a really well-known cast here, and of course, through the nature of this character, you're guessing who done it. Each one has a distinct story to themselves and reason how they're sort of involved in this murder, or something that would point to them being involved in it or the culprit of it. So it's smartly crafted, of course, and you play along, right, and try to guess who done it. That's sort of the big thing. But the acting is good. Tina Fey was really kind of stood out. A little bit of a different role, less comedic, but there's little semblances of comedy there too. She kind of plays this character with different shades to her. You don't know if she's kind of a culprit from the beginning, or she's sort of a helper, an assistant to Poirot. Already forgot. But I'm horrible with names. For those of you that have watched me before, just call him Hercule. And I just liked her, the way she carried herself with this character. So I thought it was really kind of a good role for her. And Michelle Yeoh plays this sort of a fortune teller, a medium. Really interesting character portrayal too. You don't know if she's kind of weird. I mean, most of them are sort of, you know, uh oddballs in a sense, or maybe we just all are oddballs, and they're very, right up there and with it. But she sort of plays this character a little bit of an oddball. You don't know if she's a villain or if she's trustworthy, kind of kooky. So also a really interesting performance. Everyone had an interesting character here in their respective way. So and they did a good job with the acting. Visually, it's dark. It's what you expect it to be, literally like dark. It's in this castle mansion, so we don't see much of Venice. Most of it is in the dark, but I loved how the building it takes place in the mid 40s, right? So like I said, right after World War II. And so for. But if you don't, and if you're expecting a horror, you're not getting much of that. I mean, there's a few little jump scares if you're not paying attention. And by jump scares, I mean like flickering lights, light bulb popping, just sort of these things that would make you sort of think twice if there's actual ghosts there. There's definitely an element of haunting and ghosts, and we see a handful of ghosts popping up out of nowhere in mirrors and that sort of thing. So it's more of a illusion slash is it in their imagination that they're seeing these ghosts, but it's not really a ghost story. It kind of shields itself as a ghost story, but it's not. It makes you want to think it might be a ghost story, but Hercule is here to prove that it's not, that ghosts aren't real, and he's convinced that this is just a murder that needs to be explored, and everyone else thinks this is paranormal activity here. So just a little, it's a tease of a ghost story, and it plays into that in part through the storyline, right? To later disprove of that notion, potentially. So as far as entertainment, that's where I'm torn, because I've seen the other movies and they do start out slow. This is a slow burn, no pun intended by the candles behind me, but this movie really starts off slow. And for the first 45 minutes of it, it can easily, I can see how it will easily make you disinterested or check out. It kind of did make me do that, but I still had the hope of like, okay, let's give this a chance, because I've seen the genre and this character, and I know what eventually it's about and what happens. But if you're new to it, you haven't seen the previous films, not that they're connected in any way, this is a individual standalone, but the character just is the one that connects them, of Hercule Poirot, and Kenneth Branagh's character, basically. But the thing is that if you're just new to this, you're expecting some sort of a horror, you are in for a surprise, because it's not that. It's a murder mystery, and it's a slow burn. Like I said, it's going to take a while for you to get into this, because it takes its time. And that's the downfall potentially of it too, because if you're not ready and expecting of it, you're most likely going to be checking out and not care by that second act, or what happens later on when it ramps up. Once the kind of the investigation really starts taking place, then it starts getting interesting, because you start seeing, I guess I'd say starts getting interesting when the next death happens in the house, not the one that they're investigating, but the death that happens among them. So I think that's when it starts getting in gear, and starts turning into the right place with intrigue and interest. But until then, slow burn, and it's gonna knock down some grades here, because people aren't these days used to being patient, and that includes myself, and waiting it out. So there's that. Script, like I said, it's if you in terms of the mystery and who done it, I think it's good, because it takes you in different directions. I didn't guess it. I had an idea, but then they divert you with different things. So they do a good job of planting the mystery, and for the viewer to figure it out. And then when of course the explanation happens by Hercule, when he figures it out, it's like, whoa, he ties a lot of loose ends, and there's definitely hints and Easter eggs, and throughout the movie, if you really paid attention to the boring parts, you might now see like, oh, okay, I missed these things. So it does do a good job of giving you hints throughout of who it is, and but you really need to pay close attention, because you can miss a lot of that. And it's pretty interesting. It's creative, I'd say, in that way. They did a good job with that. So overall, time for grades. Let's see. Acting, solid for me, 8 out of 10. No complaints. You're getting good actors here that play their characters well. Entertainment, 5 out of 10. You got to give that middle ground, because the first half was boring. But then when you stick with it, it gets more interesting. So that's a 5 out of 10. Plot story, 7.5 out of 10. I thought the you know, eventually when you get through the rough bumps, you know, the plot and story makes sense. It's all cohesive, and you know, it's got elements of surprise and definitely mystery. And if you want to think alongside this movie, you get a payoff later on. Impression, 7 out of 10. Also, like I said, I've seen the movies of the genre, so I know what to get. But if you don't, then you're kind of going to be surprised, you know, and maybe in a good way, maybe not. So 7 out of 10. And then creativity, I feel like this movie is creative. You know, when you put it all together, the mystery itself is doesn't have loose ends really. It's smart, it's clever, and when you see him break it down later on, it's kind of cool. So 8.5 out of 10. So there you go. That gives us a score of 72%. So a solid film. You know, they said if you can get through the early portions, that's a big knock on it. But otherwise, it's a well done film, well, clever script in that sense, but it just doesn't have that entertainment action excitement to it at all. It's a slow burn of a mystery. But if you like the previous films in the genre, you're definitely gonna like it. It stands up really well with them. If I had to rank them with the other ones, I go Nile first, this one second, and Orient Express third. So the second movie in this series was my favorite, but hey, if you've seen them all, let me know your take on that. So speaking of that, that's my score. Make sure to subscribe. That helps a lot. So subscribe, click that subscribe button. Much appreciated. If you like this review, give it a thumbs up, like, there you go. And comment, let me know what you thought, if you saw it, if you figured it out, or was it what you expected to be, for those of you who haven't seen the previous films, and all that good stuff. And in the meantime, you can also follow me on social media at, I took a deep breath there, the Jim Alexander. That's on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, all the good places, and also at The Real Talker. So there it is. That's A Haunting in Venice for you. A solid film overall, you know, if you can stick to it. But I'm out for now, and until next time, hopefully we'll be more behind a background that is not as spooky. And now I'm looking at it, they're all staring at me. So I'm out. See ya.